Happy Friday afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
We are the Real Estate Lab.
Happy Friday, everyone. Sorry about that. We are having a good time today. We're all kind of sprawled all over the place, and it's interesting because we're going to be talking about commercial. And at first you might not realize how interconnected it is with residential real estate, but it very much is. And that's why we have a guest on today. But first, we're going to go around the room. Don't forget, you can find us on Spotify, Google, Amazon, all the different podcast things. So I'm Ian of Austin, everywhere on the internet. Let's go on over to our young lady this way.
Hello, everyone. I am Liberty Walker, your resident local realtor in the Austin area. I am so excited to talk about commercial real estate today because, as you know, we are residential realtors. So we've been talking about single family condos. And so we'll be hearing from Victor today, telling us some different things about what to watch for commercial real estate in our area and how it's changed. So thanks for being here, Victor.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
JJ, why don't you introduce yourself?
What's up? JJ Tolentino with the Next Level Property Group at KW Realty. Excited about commercial. Yeah, Victor's been doing commercial in the Austin area for over a decade, and he has the different facets on retail and office and restaurant, industrial warehouse, medical space. So like Ian said, very interconnected. So I'll let Victor introduce himself, and we're going to rattle off some questions about market trends and things people should be aware about in regards to real estate.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor L. Henry. Ian, you want me to give my tag? The L stands for lease.
Yeah, give your tag. What does the L stand for?
It stands for lease agreement. So I've been helping companies find lease space for over 10 years in the Austin area. And yes, I have seen this little roller coaster of real estate kind of go up and go down and, speed up and slow down. So I hope to give some insight on what's going on in the market.
Yes, I'm so excited to hear from you. So you said retail, and that includes restaurant spaces as well. And so we, as Austin, we're getting a lot of restaurants in a different spaces, and you're helping people find leases. Do you know how they zone different areas to have food trailers and restaurants? If someone's moving into an area, is there potential there for a restaurant space or?
Well, that's determined by the city, the municipality, and, through strategic planning, they will figure out, hey, where are the best areas to have warehouses, retail, office space, because they want to, I guess, create somewhat of a flow of the city. You may notice that a lot of times that, some cities have what you call a restaurant row. There's one in Dallas where, it's a cluster of restaurants. And you may ask, well, why would restaurants want to all be near each other? Well, I think, retail is a very scientific kind of space to be in because you almost have to know what you're going to make before you build it. You got to know the cars and the people and the demographics and the spending trends and all this stuff. And so, when you get a restaurant row, for example, it's probably due to, hey, this is a good area for restaurants and we just need a variety. Because if I go to a barbecue restaurant and there's a 1 hour wait, it doesn't make me not hungry. It makes me want to go to the Chinese restaurant,
And you
right?
don't want to get back in your car and drive somewhere else. So that isn't a good idea. You're right.
Yeah. Now that's Victor's unscientific assessment of.
I love it. I think it's a very good observation for sure. So you're matching
in our space in resident. I was going to say in residential, what we notice is people tend to want to gravitate towards things like restaurants. Like that's like where they want to live. Either they want ultimate privacy or they want to be near restaurants. So like I'm sitting here at the Domain at Perry's Steakhouse. This place was packed. People want to live near here. They have apartments, they have commercial spaces and everything around here. So are you seeing that trend happen a lot around here as well?
Yeah, well, you get obviously home buyers that want to be close to amenities, schools and all these different things. And so developers keep those things in mind. But again, they do these data studies of who's in the area, their discretionary income. Obviously, if you're going to have a high-end Perry's, you don't want to put it in an area where people can't afford to go and have a $50 steak. So
you don't see a Perry's next to a dollar store is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
You don't.
It's numbers.
No. And then psychologically, would you want to? It's like, okay, how good is that steak really if it's next to a dollar store? Even though I've probably eaten dollar steaks at some point in my life, but that's a whole different show, right?
That's a whole different podcast, Victor.
Right. Now, zoning, Liberty asked about the zoning kind of aspect of it too. So, industrial has a sort of a big component of that, because think about where you're going to put something that has hazardous materials and heavy equipment, and even when they need certain needs for electricity and water. So again, those areas are probably pre-planned, because you want to put those industrial sites. I don't want to live next to an industrial site. Right. I want it maybe to be easily accessible if I'm going to work there, but I don't necessarily. And ironically, I'm saying this, Liberty. Where am I from again? Port Arthur.
That's right. We were talking about that before the show. Victor and I grew up maybe 2 minutes away from each other.
Right. But what is that area known for? Petrochemical. It's a petrochemical.
That's right.
Complex.
Yeah. Everywhere you look, there's.
Oh, well, on my side of town, I mean, we literally were in the backyards of the biggest refineries in America. So, a person.
And they explode.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
I've seen it.
And it smells like rotten. And it smells like rotten eggs all the time. Go figure. So anyway, and I don't think there was much planning into that.
Bring us to a segue.
What's that?
I said that brings us to a point where we can segue into. No, you're not losing me. Brings us to a point where we can segue into the Samsung factory or the Tesla factory being built along 130, right? Like, how is that going to disrupt the area? Apple, their new campus, all places are in Amazon. I was just at the Amazon Center earlier. These factories, they're huge.
Yeah, well, the one thing about the 130 corridor, and ironically, I live in Hutto, so we're right along that. There's a lot of room for growth that is still relatively close to Austin. So you can build mega sites, mega plants, and big complexes. There's lots of land, and your workers can still live relatively close to Austin or in the suburbs of the city. So you're going to see a lot of new development along those, as far as large commercial. But then what is that going to bring? Going to bring houses, because people, they're going to start building houses in the vicinity of.
I had a question about that. While we're talking about that, like on a residential side, we see the metrics, and a easy metric is appreciation on homes in the past year have gone like 20 to 40% higher, over the year. Is there like a crazy commercial metric or like something you've seen in, like, is there a bunch of office space or a bunch of restaurant space all coming to town?
I wouldn't say coming to town. There is, and again, you have to divide the commercial market into the segments.
Mhm.
So, for instance, office space, I haven't really seen a growth as far as construction.
Is there like a segment that you've noticed, just any interesting segment of either of the markets that you noticed in Austin as a trend?
Well, not just Austin, but just generally, if you think about warehousing,
Hmm.
and that ties in with logistics, with delivery services, with the Amazons of the world, that
Right.
now I'm not going to the grocery store or to the mall to buy something. I'm ordering it online.
Right.
Well, it has to come
Right.
from a warehouse, which then goes to a smaller local warehouse. So we're seeing the trend has shown a little bit that the growth area seems to be in industrial.
I could see
What
that industrial warehouse.
Can you do some name dropping for us? Are there any companies that we would recognize that you've worked with? Or are you not allowed to say?
I can give you sectors. I've worked with some local restaurants. I've worked with my church. Yeah, but I don't know if I could really say without them being okay with it. But
I would even assume back to the Amazon topic. There's also, you see like an Amazon, an Apple, and a Samsung. I'm assuming some of these industrial warehouse spaces are still affiliated with those businesses. They're not Samsung, but they have industrial warehouse for Samsung parts. Something like that. Is that kind of how it works around here?
No, it's generally there's an investor or a developer that builds it, and for instance, there was a lease that was signed early this year where Amazon signed a 400,000 square foot lease. And I want to say it was like the biggest lease ever signed in the Austin area, but it's not their building. It's a lease. So a lot of times these companies, now the building that they developed over in Pflugerville is their building, right? But a lot of times,
that was my question too, because I was wondering, like, people move here because of we're getting all these big companies like Tesla and stuff like that. Are they going to own those buildings? Are they here permanently, or are they leasing them? Are they going to leave?
It depends, but most likely, like from what I gather, the Samsung project is going to be there. They are going to own it. Tesla owns the building, the mega site, the giga site that they're building.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon owns the major warehouse distribution that they're building. But these companies do go into lease space a lot too.
Yeah, that was interesting to hear. So Amazon is leasing a huge space, and they still have their warehouse.
Yeah, that warehouse is the total square footage of it is 3.8 million square feet.
3.8 million square feet.
Yes, the one that they built for themselves. But
like the
lease is like 400,000, right? So they do a variety of things.
One of my questions would be, do you think it's a good idea for someone to buy houses near these epicenters of growth?
And you're saying as far as investment purposes for their,
that's just their own. Everybody who's buying a house is buying it either for love or for money, and it always ends up being an investment, right?
Yeah,
whether they choose to or not, right? But yeah, I'm saying if they want to move there to live there, do you think it makes sense? And I guess ask it the other way too. If they want to move it, buy it as an investment, which do you think works really well based on the growth you're seeing in the commercial space?
I mean, I figure it works both ways, whether it's their house or their homestead, or if it's an investment property, because not only are you going to have the Teslas and the Samsungs and the primary business, but you're going to have the ancillary businesses that come to support those businesses, and people are going to still want to live close to, if it's not the actual Amazon company, but the company that supports light bulbs or whatever it is that they do for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's always going to be my Alexa keeps hearing me say that word, and she's talking to me.
Oh, I want an Alexa so bad. I'm
Oh
asking
God.
Santa for
Well,
Christmas.
I don't know.
Omnipresent, these companies.
So if I say that company, you know what I'm talking about, because I don't want it to answer me.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can switch it to Apple. Let's go to the other
Yeah.
big A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you seeing a lot of rentals right now? Like people asking to lease a lot of office space, or are you seeing them die down because of the pandemic? Like, what are you seeing as far as trends right now?
I haven't seen a lot of office leases, but I have seen people look for retail. Because again, I guess with the companies coming, people are still going to need these different services that, are supported by having more individuals in an area.
Do you know anything about like the Liberty Hill area or Leander and what kind of things might be going up in that direction? Because of everything, it seems like Austin's just growing further and further north. But Liberty Hill, I know they broke ground on an HEB, but what else might be going up there?
I'm glad you asked that question. So one of the resources that I use is this thing called a commercial property exchange. So basically it's a meeting of brokers that come together and we talk about properties that we have or that we trying to offer, or clients that we're working with, and we typically have a guest speaker. So we had a guest speaker from Liberty Hill ISD come.
Wow.
And so just to tell you about Liberty Hill at the time he spoke to us has in total 6,500 students in their entire ISD. By 2030, they're going to have 22,000.
Wow.
So what does that tell you? I mean, buy a house there, start a business there. Liberty Hill is going to be the new growth. It actually is supposed to be the largest city in Williamson County at some point. As far
It's
as
so
population.
interesting. I don't think people connect those, right? So you have people that are moving to this city, this Liberty Hill, like Santa Rita Ranch. There's 6,000 to 10,000 homes being built. Okay,
Yeah.
all of those people don't work a traditional 9-to-5 job, right? You might have a quarter of them that want to start their own business.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing, I don't think people pay attention to that, but how much more industry is going to grow as a result of people coming here because they heard either about Tesla or Apple, so Apple's not far from there, or
Right.
the HEB, people that are working for HEB, they're still going to buy houses. What are their partners going to do? Right?
Right. And so there could be opportunity, like you said, for someone to start a business, a local business, that would support. And we know how important small businesses are to local communities. So, yeah, I mean, that trend is also in place where, you get somebody that comes here for the Samsung job and the spouse, it's kind of like my wife and I, we're a W-2 1099 blend, so so you can see you could see those kind of things happening.
That's so insightful, and it makes me want to go to Liberty Hill. Not just
Why'd
because
you
I'm
ask about that specifically, that area? Is it because your name's Liberty, so you're like Liberty Hill?
No,
It's just a high demand, super high demand.
But it's still kind of a place where it's, you have homeowners that are interested in getting some more square footage, going a little bit further out. Maybe they're working remotely. But do you buy in a town that right now, if you go up there, there's a lot of undeveloped land? So that could be a deterrent for some people. They need to get to their target. They need to go to HEB. So if businesses are going to be there to support those people, let's encourage them to go up there, because there's some beautiful land and some new construction homes that are quite nice.
Yeah. Well, it's going to come sooner than later too. I mean, I tell you, in 3 to 5 years, there's an HEB being built. There's going to be a lot of services found in Liberty Hill.
I have a question for you, Victor. Can you tell us what the situation is with rent? So let's talk money for a minute. in residential, we've seen the prices kind of jump in tier sets, but the rent hasn't yet. And I feel like that's coming. Are you seeing something similar in commercial space? Like, what are lease prices right now? Are they rising? Are they about the same as before? What are they looking like?
You know, I really haven't seen rents go up. They were already fairly high. I think they had already jumped prior COVID, but they're not going down, which is interesting. Landlords, in my opinion, are more likely to give incentives on tenant improvements and things like that, maybe free rent for a while, but for the most part, I think the situation is a landlord, especially if they have a loan on a piece of property, they know they have to charge a certain amount of rent to make that return on investment. And then their bank can kind of hold them to the fire on some of this stuff too. Like, hey, if we know you're signing leases at 20% less of what we project rents are, you will never be able to pay us back, Mr. Landlord, sir. So, so it's the toughest thing to do. And I hate to say this because I don't want to sound like the sales guy, but the toughest thing to do is to get a landlord to go down on rent. He will more likely try to give you some incentives to move in or something of that nature. But again, he wants that
probably
return.
Like an Austin economy thing, though, right? Because maybe some other towns or areas. It's interesting because so much has happened during the year and a half. You would think there was some distress situations,
Yeah, there's distress situations, but again, if that property has a bank loan on it, they still are subject to the underwriters and not underwriters, but the bank requirements for
bill collector.
Yeah. So I know it sounds weird, but yeah, the banks kind of control what you do, especially if they've given you the money.
Okay, that makes sense.
Are taxes the same for? I guess if you're leasing a commercial space, then maybe the taxes are wrapped up into your payments. I know some leases, they have to pay their own taxes.
Typically what happens is you get what's called a triple net lease. And so the taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance for that building is separated out and quoted in a separate price per square foot to the tenant. Now, this is the landlord's expenses. And so the reason why landlords do that is because some of those factors are unknown for the year. They don't know what the taxes are going to be. They don't know if they're going to have to repair some unknown, thing that happens to the building. And so, yes, those things are all wrapped up in it's like your escrow account on your house.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best example I can use is the bank separates out the actual note from the taxes and insurance because they don't know if your, so-and-so company is going up on your insurance for the year or what, like you said, the taxes, get bumped up. So.
Okay. So a little bit different.
Yeah.
What about if you are leasing a building and they want to sell it? Do they have the right to kick you out or do you have a right of first?
Your lease should stand in place, with that new owner. And actually, more than likely, the new owner is wanting you to be there. They're buying a cash flow. Yeah. So
I'm thinking from like an investor standpoint, I don't know how much sales you do or if it's like a subleasing thing. Are there opportunities like restaurants goes out of business? Is there an opportunity for another restaurant person to sublease and maybe get a better deal and start the comeback of everything opening up? Do you see those opportunities?
Well, that's a very good question because that happens, frequently. And I'm glad you used the example of restaurants because if you think about a restaurant, the infrastructure to build a kitchen and all that stuff is very expensive. So if a restaurant goes out of business, the new restaurateur has an opportunity to say, hey, I can go in and lease this building and they would be able to use that equipment. So it probably wouldn't be a sublease if that first restaurant is totally out of the picture. But those are what we call second generation spaces, where there was a restaurant or a church or a daycare. They have specific build out and specific, infrastructure that benefits the second guy that could come in. So you do see that those are hot items too. Second generation.
So are we seeing more of those right now? More second generation and third generation type restaurants because of what happened in the pandemic?
Not really more. It's funny. I think the PPP loans and all that stuff has kept some of these businesses afloat.
That's what it sounds like for the most part,
And
fairly.
if you think about it, but think about it too, from a landlord's perspective. If I become Mr. Hard Ass and, I'm like trying to kick you out because you can't pay rent during the pandemic, well, who's ready to pay rent during the pandemic?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense really to kick somebody out.
Everyone's just sticking it out.
Yeah, it's like
they've been a
hurry
good
up and
tenant.
wait kind of thing.
Yeah, if they've been a good tenant, why would I, really push to kick them out, then have a vacancy, and then you don't know who's going to come and occupy that space? Because unfortunately, the thing about commercial real estate is, and I deal with this all the time. A person explains to me their requirement, right? So it goes from I want a restaurant to I want a restaurant in North Austin. Okay, that's one requirement. Well, I want 3,000 square feet. Well, I want it to be next to this school. Well, I want to pay this much in rent. So once you go from general to 4 requirements, well, how many restaurant spaces are out there that fit those 4 things that are going to be available right now? And that's what makes it somewhat hard to find, these specific spaces. Now, if somebody's looking for a house, they may say, hey, I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in a good school district. Well, there's probably a little more of those.
Right.
No. They say that until they see what's out there, and then they start adding the criteria, and they're like, but I also want this and this and this and this and this after they've seen 5 or 6 houses. Like,
and then it
now
goes
the shit comes out.
And then it goes to, okay, there's one house in Austin that fits that.
Well, let's ask you this, Victor, while we have a few more minutes left. So let's say that Ian and JJ and myself want to open up our own sandwich shop and we need a space to rent. How do we find you? What does the process look like there?
Well, you find me on the phone number that's on the screen, but
call you up.
You call me up and I basically take, I listen to what you guys want to do and where you want to do it and all this stuff. And then I use different resources to try and find, and I would try to find you a second generation sandwich shop,
That sounds good. Yeah.
The cost of you starting that business is greatly reduced if that infrastructure is already in place.
That
what are you seeing people come with for capital? What are you seeing people come with for capital when they're like, I want to start a sandwich shop in the Domain since I'm sitting here? What are you seeing people say? Oh, well, I have to have this much capital ready to go. I need to hear this number.
You're saying what is the client coming with?
Yep. What are they coming to the table with? I want to hear some real numbers.
They're coming to the table with nothing.
Now you're talking my language, Victor. I am ready to go. Let's do it.
So let's just say this. That's not getting the deal done. So you got to, I would say, once you evaluate, so let's step back. I'll let you know kind of what the market rates are and all this stuff. And I will say, you probably need to have about 6 months of rent in reserve. It's not required, but it makes good business sense, right? And then again, we try to mitigate the cost of you having to pay for build out by finding a second generation space. But, construction can be $50 to $70 per square foot, depending on what you're trying to do.
Are you seeing construction higher right now because of labor shortage?
I'm not seeing that because most of my clients, I'm finding them stuff that's pretty much ready to go. But I'm sure that someone out there will tell you, yes, the labor, the construction prices with availability of materials and people is causing, time delays and money and cost increases.
Last question, and then I'll stop talking. How do you feel about this great resignation? How's it going to impact office space?
The
you know
what?
I'm talking about? Great resignation, where people are like the Burger King. There was a situation a couple days ago where all the employees at a Burger King were like, "Yeah, I quit. You're not paying us enough." That's a big deal. That's going to affect commercial and then residential, right? If that continues to perpetuate itself, and
Yeah,
where it
I
continues
mean,
to
I'm sure
perpetuate.
it would. You know, that'll affect those businesses' ability to stay in business, which then would obviously cause vacancies. But then you're still talking about sort of that same trend. If everybody's quitting and nobody's working, who's going to be the next tenant? Because the next tenant won't be able to find workers, just like the last tenant lost the workers. So I don't
We'll
know.
need to keep that in mind. When we
Yeah.
open our sandwich shop, because I have a vision now of a
You
sandwich shop in
looking
Liberty
for a
Hill.
sandwich shop?
You
love
let me
it.
know when you find one, Victor. I wrote your number down. I'll check in with you.
Well, we are over time, everybody. So thank you very much for visiting us at the Real Estate Lab. See you next week, Friday, 2:30, I think, Central Time. Everybody, peace out.
That's right. That's what time it is.
That's
That's
right,
what
y'all.
time we
Thanks for
love.
tuning
Thank
in.
you so much,
Appreciate you, Victor.
Victor. It was
Thank
wonderful
you for
seeing
having me. I
Victor.
really appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. Bye.